Welcome to Bridging the Bayou, where we will explore what it means to work, live, and play in the Bayou region. Join us as we take a deeper dive into the people and experiences that make our region such a special place to live and work. On each podcast, we will talk to individuals who are making our region grow and go, who are making strides in uplifting our community. This year, Fletcher Technical Community College is celebrating its 75th anniversary, 75 years of changing lives. This is a podcast of Fletcher Technical Community College. Welcome to Bridging the Bayou, the podcast of Fletcher Technical Community College. I am your host, Chancellor Kristine Strickland, and have a very special guest in the studio with us today, State Representative Jessica Domangue, who is with us representing District 53, but also a licensed clinical social worker with Start Corporation. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today in this episode. Welcome, Representative Domangue.
Thank you so much for having me.
So glad you could be with us. Let me just start with an easy one. Can you tell us where District 53 is for all of our listeners?
District 53 represents most of the area south of the Intercoastal, most of the Bayou areas. We also represent a little bit of downtown Houma and a little bit of Lisa Park. So it's a pretty big area. Each area, the state or each representative represents approximately about 44,000 people.
Wow. Lots of folks out there. So if you're in this district, we got a special show for you today. And if not, I think you're going to have a lot of great information coming at you. So, well, let's get started. Let's get to know you a little bit better. We do a fun thing called 5 in 5. 5 questions in about 5 minutes-ish. And so my first question for you is, if your life were a movie, what song do you think would play during the opening scene?
So I've been wrapping my brain around this one and trying to figure out what song it was, and we had this conversation just a little while ago. So I would think it would be the 80s hit "I Come From a Land Down Under."
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so hint, hint, everybody, you're going to want to watch to the end of this episode. That's a little teaser there. Very good. Well, what is something that you're good at that most people would not guess about you?
Really, it's been a lifetime of trying to make myself better. But a few years ago, I really got into CrossFit. And so I go to the gym a lot. And so I'm really, really strong. And so I not to brag or anything, but I can deadlift about 220 pounds.
Holy
so
smokes.
yeah, it's kind of something that makes me feel good and gets a lot of the frustration out. It's something I'm good at is definitely working out and lifting weights.
Have you ever competed?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't have time for that. This is just a fun thing. This
Okay.
is just something I enjoy doing. It's something I like to keep my body healthy, keep my brain healthy. And so it's just something fun.
Excellent. Well, if you woke up tomorrow and you had a completely different career path or life path, what would it be?
I really like the life path that I'm on right now, and I never would have thought my career would be where it is right now. But I think I'd want to do something with traveling, maybe a podcaster that, travels to all these places and gets to, do interviews with different countries or different destinations. I think that would be a really neat career. I don't think there's a lot of money in that, but it sounds like a really fun opportunity.
Sure does. And look, as much as I love to travel, I've got the podcast equipment. You let me know when you're ready to go.
That would be great.
We could tag team.
We'll do that in our retirement.
Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Jessica and Kristine, hit the road. All right. What is the simplest thing that can instantly make your day better?
My children, just my girls, they are the reason why I do everything. They're the reason why I'm here now. They're my reason for being. And so them just coming home and, talking about their day, it just instantly puts a smile on my face. When I'm in Baton Rouge or traveling and call them and they get to tell me about, all of their adventures, it just makes me happy. And it makes me know that what I'm doing is for a reason.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, my last of the 5 in 5. If you can have dinner with your younger self, what advice would you give?
I would tell my younger self not to be so hard on myself. Not everything is so serious. Mistakes happen and it's okay to forgive yourself. And just to be a lot more easygoing. When I was younger, I was very, very, very much type A. I still am, but I was very type A. Like everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be in the spot. And then as I've gotten older, I've realized that those things just don't really matter. So I would really tell myself to cut myself some slack.
Yeah, that is such great advice. And I think I probably could have even used that advice when I was younger, right? For those who are out there who might consider themselves type A or very organized, kind of the high achieving, it's oftentimes easy to fall into the trap of everything is important, everything is priority, and you maybe lose some fun. So, I'm glad that we're both maybe discovering that as we I don't want to say age, as we grow as people, right? Well, let's go ahead and dive in. You are a lady who wears lots of hats, and both at the Stark Corporation and as our state representative. And I'm just wondering, this is sort of a two-pronged question, but let me start with, how do you balance the policy making, right, with sort of then your work in terms of personal and hands-on helping actual individuals? So you go from working with individuals in one setting to working with 44,000 people and representing them. And how do you balance that?
That's a really good question. It's something that I've worked on for my career. As you know, I started off in local government, so I was on our parish council, still working as a social worker in community health. And because I'm a social worker and I've had that training, I've always been able to kind of compartmentalize things in that way. And so when I was on council, I thought about it as this is my caseload. Like I've got a caseload of 100,000 clients. Being my clients are the residents of Terrebonne Parish. Now I have a caseload of 4 million clients, right? Just knowing that every decision and everything that we decide not only affects ourselves and our own personal family, but we are affecting the lives of millions of Louisiana citizens. And so I like to think about it always in that social work lens, as far as we are affecting millions and millions of people with one decision that we make. I don't take anything lightly, and make sure that we really are, educating myself and making sure that I understand every angle of every policy we make, because there are some things that we could do that could be detrimental to some people or maybe not to others. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at the entire scope of the decisions that we're making.
Yeah. And so when you overlay, the role of, I know, wife and mom, talk to us a little bit. I'm just curious about your time management. What does that look like? I'm sure it looks maybe different when you're in session versus not in session, but how do you find room for all of that in your day?
Not going to be involved in everything, right? I've got to say no to a lot of things. That's something you learn very early on too, is you have to say no to things, but you also have to find what works for you and works best for you. And my husband and I have really had to look at this through a scope of, what's going to work best for my family. I had to take a step back from my clinic work. I mean, I had to stop seeing patients as far as on a rotation basis. Like I don't see patients for counseling. I only see patients for assessments, which I actually really enjoy doing assessments. So I've had to take a part-time instead of a full-time position because of my work with the state. We've been able to make that work. And then, of course, when it's family time, it's family time. When the kids get home, the work stops. Now, that's sometimes difficult because it seems like we're always in crisis mode in South Louisiana. So there are times when we have to work at home. And they tend to tell me, Mom, you've been on your phone too much, or, and so, okay. And then I have to be cognizant, or, we go to public events or we go places and everyone knows me and they're like, Mom, we just hate that. But, we do travel a lot. We make sure that we take a lot of trips with the kids, and we make sure that we leave the state so that no one knows us, which is really wonderful. And we can really just be present with them. But it's just really finding the balance for you and finding whatever balance that works for you. And what works for me may not work for someone else. But we really work hard to make sure that family time is number one.
That's great. And thank you so much for that honest answer, because I think a lot of times when folks see you probably on social media or Facebook, they're like, wow, she does it all. She's on vacation. She's with her kids. She's celebrating back to school. And then she's doing stuff in the legislature, representing us out in the community. And I think that's such an important point, is to recognize that for anyone who's juggling multiple things like that, there is a give and a take. Right. And it's about prioritizing what's really important. And it sounds like you do that really well.
Yeah. And you have to also just say no to things. Like, I don't have a huge social network. Like, I don't have a huge net of all these friends that I hang out with all the time, because I just don't have time for it. And it's not that it's not something that's not a need or a want. I get my needs and wants in other places. But it's just the fact that, I'm very goal oriented, and these are the things that I know that I want to happen in life. And so these are the things that I have to sacrifice as well, because I can't be gone all the time. I mean, I need to be home with my children. And once again, they're number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this is going to be a random question, but this is just a curiosity question for me. I heard someone in our federal delegation speak recently about legislation, and they talked about that one bill was 900 pages. And I know even at the state level, some of the legislation that you all get is, could be in the hundreds of pages. I'm just curious, like, how do you keep up with all the bills and all the reading? And I'm just like, wow, are you guys like super readers, or how does that actually work behind the scenes, if you don't mind sharing?
Every other year we have a fiscal session, so you don't have as many bills. Like, every legislator only has 5 bills they can file. But during a regular session, it's unlimited. And so we could have 2,000 instruments come through that 3-month period. We're split up in committees. And so I sit on the Commerce, the Natural Resources, the Municipal Committee. And so for our committee days, I do read the bills and make sure that I'm aware of what we're debating in committee days. So we may debate 10 bills or 12 bills, and some are long and some are not long. Some are really short bills, like 1 or 2 pages, so they're pretty easy to process. I really focus on what's in front of me, and then I lean on my friends who are on the other committees to educate me on the bills that they're running through their committees as well. And of course you have lobbyists, and you have these people, and you have these people. You have constituents who may be passionate about a bill as well that would call you up. And so once they go through committee, then they get sent to the House floor. And that's whenever it's really time to kind of focus on the debate. And that's when, if you have a question about a bill, or you have a question about something in the debate, you can ask your question or something. And there may be there's bills that have come up too that I necessarily didn't have a position on. And then when it came to the floor debate, I said, this really is not going to be good for Terrebonne Parish. And so at that point, then maybe I'll question the bill, or I'll vote in a way that's important for the parish. And of course, it's not my personal opinion on the bill. It's what's best for Terrebonne Parish. And so we always are representing our districts in Baton Rouge. And so there have been some that I necessarily didn't know about, I didn't have a position, but then once I heard, I said, nope, this isn't a very good bill. I had to vote accordingly. But it is very tricky. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of your focus. I mean, that's why we're there for 3 months. I mean, that's why we basically live there, is because your entire world is enmeshed in the legislature while you're in session. So it's a pretty wild world over there.
Now, and I appreciate that insight, because, when you spoke about it just now, it makes sense that you have these committees that really dive deep into the bills that are in front of them, and you kind of become subject matter experts on those particular pieces of legislation. And then, of course, not everything that gets filed winds up on the House floor. So you're really then focusing and narrowing your focus as things move out of the committee, move to a full vote, and then getting the information you need. So that really does make a lot of sense. And I'll just say, you mentioned, constituents and different folks. I can remember one of my very first times being up at the legislature during session as a relatively new chancellor and watching the whole thing in progress. And I think what probably surprised me the most, and I think might surprise a lot of folks out listening and watching with us, is the level of access that we have to you all, to be able to fill out a card with our opinion on it, or to actually come and ask, send you a note at your desk. And I've had legislators who actually come out of the chambers to talk about a particular issue or talk about a particular piece of legislation and how it's going to impact. And so I really hope that for folks who are watching and listening today, that you, if you weren't aware, to know that participating in this process, you don't have to be elected. You don't have to have some special title, right? Anybody in our community can come up to the legislature and participate. And I don't know if you want to add anything, but I think that was one of the things that really, I don't want to say surprised me, but was just really made me appreciate our governance and how we do legislation and how we pass laws and that whole process.
Yeah, and we actually really like whenever people come up, and we like when people call, and I like to hear from people as far as kind of where they sit on something or where how it's going to affect them. And I want people to ask me, Jessica, I was a little confused on a vote. Can you explain to me about this vote? Because I like to have those conversations with people. My cell phone number, everybody knows my cell phone number. Send me a text. I'm coming up. It's kind of fun if we have a group from Fletcher, or we have a group from, just a group of residents who come. It's fun to introduce them on the House floor. So we could definitely do that. That's an easy thing to do. But come and talk to us about whatever it is, whatever concern it is that you have about any piece of legislation. You can, go to the Sergeant Arms. They'll bring us a note and say, hey, so-and-so is here to say hi. But it's really easy, and I'm actually very accessible. I sit in the back, and so people can just say, hey, Jess, and, I'm right there. And so it's really great. But we love to see people, and it's great to see people from home. It's always good to see familiar faces, especially when you're in the chaos of the session.
Yeah, very good. Well, let me shift directions just a little bit. And there might be folks out there with us who aren't familiar with Start Corporation. Can you talk to us a little bit about what does Start Corporation do for our community?
So START is, we started out small, right? We started out case management and some mental health and a little bit of housing, some homeless resources, and we have grown to offices all over the state. We've got offices in Shreveport. We've got offices in New Orleans. I see people in Pineville. I see people literally all over the state. Because we have that reach now. We have a big homeless shelter and a homeless outreach in Baton Rouge. START is really great. We've got the clinic here in Houma, which it's a FQHC, which is a federally qualified health center. Okay. And so that means that we see absolutely everybody, whether they are on a sliding scale and have no insurance or can't pay, to having insurance, and everything in between. So we see everybody. We have mental health, we have substance abuse, we have primary care, we have dental, we have a pharmacy now at the clinic. So we have a lot of resources there in the clinic. We see probably about 200, 250 patients a day. Wow. Just in the clinic. And then we also have our home-based services, which is case management. We see children, we see adults, we see people with severe to profound mental illnesses like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, psychosis, some of those really, really severe patients. And that's who I see the most for my assessments is the people with severe to profound mental illnesses. So we've got ACT services for those individuals. We also have housing and wraparound services as well. So we do a lot. We're continuing to grow. I was actually just in D.C. at the White House, and they were talking about President Trump's agenda, and part of that is expanding mental health services and crisis services, especially those for people with substance abuse and homelessness. And part of that is sending down those CBDG grants. And specifically to FQHCs.
Right.
So you're just going to see START and other agencies like START. I believe you have a couple other FQHCs here in Terrebonne Parish, but you're going to see those agencies grow and expand as those federal dollars come in to be able to focus on homelessness and substance abuse and things like that, which is needed. It's absolutely needed. I mean, we all know about the homeless crisis we have just in our small community, and it's something that's affecting the entire state.
Yeah, and look, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask about. You really do hear out in the communities that we serve the challenges around substance abuse in particular, right? Around mental health and the connection to mental health and substance abuse, or mental health and homelessness. What do you see as really some of the bigger challenges that we have to address as a community in order to make sure that we are connecting the services to the people who need it?
So in our area, particularly in Terrebonne Parish and a lot of our rural areas, we're seeing this intergenerational poverty, this intergenerational substance abuse, but it's all stemming to this intergenerational trauma. And so putting my social work hat on, I feel as though if we really focus on that trauma piece, we're going to focus a lot on healing our communities. And that's why I ran for office, even in the first place, like back in, 2019, 2018, when I first got excited about running for local offices. I thought, if I can, heal trauma, I can heal Louisiana. And so, it's been something I've been working on. It's why I'm passionate about recreation. And that's why I'm passionate about, building resiliency and building playgrounds and all these things. It's not because I want a nice playground. It's because children can heal trauma through play. And so a lot of it got lost in the translation. And but just getting back to that core belief that we just need to heal trauma in our communities, I think that we'll be able to work on those other things, because your substance abuse and your mental health, it's all related to trauma. We're going to continue to always have those issues, but I think that if we could focus on the one thing, we would really help Louisiana.
Awesome. So, I mean, just looking at that and seeing how that's sort of threaded throughout your whole journey, right? Both professionally and what you've chosen to do, and then, seeking elected office in order to make that change. How does what you've seen in your career in our community inform sort of where you go with legislation? Are they one and the same?
It's kind of one of it is kind of one and the same. Like, I'm not gonna, carry a bill that's detrimental, or I'm not gonna vote for a bill that would be detrimental. And then it gets me in trouble a lot because I always look at things through a social work lens. And so there's been a few times where I've got myself in the weeds because I'm like, hey guys, this might be a really great idea, but the implementation of this is not really good for our communities. So we might need to take a step back and say, we really need to look at this through a different lens. And so that's gotten me in a lot of trouble. But it's good because I'm a unique voice. I'm the only licensed clinical social worker in the House, and there's a senator who has a social work background. He's not a social worker, not a licensed clinical social worker. However, he's got a social work background, and so knowing that I'm only one of two voices in the entire legislature, I think is really important, especially because we look through things through a different lens and kind of look at the entire environment and how things affect other things. Yeah, no, that is so important to have those varied voices and experiences professionally and personally, I think, in that body
to make sure that you are looking at things. And even though I know sometimes those conversations might be difficult, they're needed. I would almost look at it as you can help prevent us from kind of, as I refer to it, walking into a tree limb, right? Because you can say, wait a minute, today what this looks like, it may look like the greatest thing, but let's think about, a few months from now when we're in implementation and maybe some of the challenges. So I think that that's wonderful that you bring that to the table. When you think about Terrebonne Parish, what do you think are the most significant challenges we are facing? I mean, I know we've talked a little bit about the homelessness and substance abuse and mental health, but sort of outside of that sphere, are there other things that really weigh on you in terms of we have to figure these challenges out?
So there are several. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is losing our coast and, working on coastal restoration. And that was a hot button topic this session because there was some controversial measures that were put forth, looking at our seafood industry, looking at just growing industry here. Of course, we're seeing huge investments all over the state. I think we've put about $65 billion worth of investments in industry around the state over the last few years, but looking at where does Terrebonne Parish fit with that, right? And where does that fit for our people? Insurance, of course, is another crisis. I mean, people call all the time about insurance, about not being able to afford their insurance. And so it's multifaceted, the things that we have to look at to be able to continue to sustain Terrebonne Parish. And so we all have to make sure that we're kind of going in the same direction to make sure that we're doing those things. And so, of course, once again, whenever I go to Baton Rouge, or I go to Washington, or wherever it is, I'm always thinking about Terrebonne Parish first, and I'm always thinking about how is this going to affect our people down here first. I mean, Louisiana is a big state, and so someone who lives in North Louisiana does not necessarily have the same values or beliefs of somebody that lives in coastal Louisiana. And so that's where those debates come in. And I've had questions of people asking me, we give you guys in the South, billions of dollars for coastal restoration. Is it working? I say, well, why don't you come to Cocodrie and see that it's working, right? Why don't you come see the new land that's being formed? Why don't you come and see what's happening? Because they don't see it and they don't necessarily believe it. So it is making sure that you're constantly kind of selling your area and making sure, because everybody's kind of going after the same pie, just making sure that our pie is just as important. And, look, guys, if we don't work on coastal restoration in Terrebonne Parish, well, then the coast is going to be in Lafourche, and then the coast is going to be in St. Charles, right? I mean, so we have to make sure that we're protecting what we have. And everybody's ideas are really great, but not everybody's ideas are going to cross the finish line either. Yeah,
great point. You mentioned a few minutes ago when it's a fiscal session, you all have 5 bills. I knew that part. Is it unlimited on the other years? Is it?
Yes.
Yeah, you can file as many as you wanted?
So during a fiscal session, you can file as many local bills as you can.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so if you want to rename a street or whatever, those are easy bills to file. I sit in municipal, and so we heard a lot of local bills. Some good bills, some not good bills, but that's everywhere. But in a non-fiscal session, yes, you could file as many bills as you want. But you have to remember, you as the author is responsible for all of those bills. And I can't ever imagine a place where I'm going to file 20 bills, because I have to run those bills in committees. I have to run those bills on the House floor. Then I'm responsible for those bills in the Senate as well. So you may have a day, and I've had these days, where you'll have, 3 bills in committee on the House side, 3 bills in the committee on the Senate side, plus your bills are being presented on each floor. And you have to make sure you have a senator who's going to present your bill as well. And so it's a lot of ping-ponging back and forth. And it's a lot to juggle. I've only gone through 2 sessions, but I'm not going to file anything that I'm not passionate about or that's not going to be really good for our area. You're not going to see me just file some frivolous bill just to have a bill out there. it's going to be something that's got meaning behind it, because it is a lot of work to have to juggle all those. And there's some days where you just go home and you're like, whoa, like it was
that was a wild one, huh?
Yeah, it feels like sometimes, how they have those snow globes and you shake them up and like all that stuff is spinning. Like that's how Baton Rouge feels, but it never settles. It's just always spinning and always going round and round. And so then you lay your head on the pillow at night and you're like, oh gosh, I just survived this. But I say that because it's so much going on, and people do it, and people do it successfully. I don't think I'm the person that's going to do that. It's going to be that we're going to have something that really is meaningful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so quality over quantity.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how you get to the point where you decide what you're going to file. How do you get to that? How do you tie, for instance, what you see is needed in Terrebonne Parish, right? Either challenges or opportunities. I want to be real clear that not everything's a challenge. There's opportunities out there for us, right? But how do you then say, okay, I've got this whole list of things over here. How do you work through that decision of this is what's really going to be meaningful to the parish or to the region, and narrowing that down to what actually ultimately gets filed?
I think it really depends on the committees you serve on, as well. Because of course, if you're on education, well, then you're probably going to be more focused on educational bills. If you're on health and welfare, you're probably going to be more focused on bills related to health and welfare. Sometimes you'll have people call you up and ask you to run a bill for you. You'll have a lobbyist maybe ask you to run a bill. You'll have a statewide elected official ask you to run a bill. I ran a bill for Nancy Landry last year, part of her election integrity package. So it just really depends. And then of course you want to look at your area. You want to look at what's happening in your area. Everyone knows that we've had a bridge crisis. It's no secret. It is due to 50 years of one, lack of maintenance, and two, just reorganizing kind of what we were doing before. And I've spoken to the Speaker of the House about this already. I've spoken to the governor about this. I really like this year to look at our bid laws and to look at the way we're using kind of this archaic system of this low bidder mentality that we all know is not necessarily the best when it comes to projects. And so I was able to experience it and see it on a local basis, on local, being in local government, and then now seeing it in a statewide way as well. I think that's something that I definitely want to look into. And if that, to me, is the one thing I'll work on this session, I think it will be a win, because that way at least I can commit myself to being able to just look at this one avenue. And so I'm really interested in that, of course, right now. And then, we don't know what's going to come next. Yeah. So, there may be something else that sparks our interest, or you may say, you know what, hey, this is something that I'm kind of interested in. I might want to run a bill about it. And so we've got a really great group of freshmen. Last year it was insurance. And so a lot of the insurance bills that came out were all written by freshmen, which was very interesting.
I did not know that either.
So we
interesting.
We actually all got together and we said, who's going to carry this bill? Who's going to do this? So we're kind of working as a team, and it's really neat because we're from all over the state, but we all are very passionate about, moving Louisiana to a better future, and we're very reform oriented as well, and we really want to see things change. I think we've all seen that we can't keep going in the direction that we're going, and so that'll be interesting to see kind of where everybody else's heart is. That way we can put a package together that's going to be really great for the state of Louisiana.
Awesome. So when you think about, oh my goodness, all the things, right? The local opportunities and challenges we have, the things that are happening at the state, what do you feel is the priority that when you look towards the future of our region and the state, you say, if we can get this thing right, it's going to be a game changer for us?
I think it's economic development. I think it's looking at opportunities for the state to have investments, to have corporations come in, because we're a poor state. We are, and we complain about our roads, and we complain about this, and we complain about that. It's because we don't have a lot of money, right?
Right.
It's and I feel as though if we can grow our economy, we're going to have more ad valorem taxes, right?
Yep.
So we'll have more monies going into our local and our state governments, and so that we won't be taxing ourselves anymore. And the goal really is to get to no personal income tax. I mean, that's kind of been the goal of Governor Jeff Landry, and we've been able to reduce some of that as well. But we'll never get there without economic opportunities. And economic opportunities not only brings wealth to the state, but it brings wealth to our people. And of course, if you have more wealth and you have people who have more opportunity, then you're able to heal mental illness and substance abuse and trauma, right? Because you have your residents who are thriving. And so I feel as though that's where we need to be, whether it's our commercial seafood industry or our farmers or whatever it is. Just having more opportunities in the state, I think, is going to be so much better. And Governor Jeff Landry has really honed in on keeping our people in Louisiana, stopping the outmigration, and having us continue to grow and thrive. And so we've seen it. We just need to see that continue.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with you. I think that that's really a cornerstone piece of what a prosperous future looks like for Louisiana. And look, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention in terms of Fletcher, right? Our role is to help build that economic engine. We are the workforce piece of that, but it's a really critical piece in terms of when business and industry are looking to relocate to the state, or you may have somebody who is looking to stand up their own new business or corporation, they want to know who's going to work there. So the opportunity we have to provide that workforce, to both attract and sustain our business and industry climate, but then to your point, to be able to have opportunities for our residents to get trained so that they can work in those jobs when they come in. We know that there's a bit of a gap between sometimes the skills that our workforce has and then the skills of the future, right? Whether it's AI or advanced technologies or whatever that is, but that we're here to try to fill that gap, which is really, I think, a critical piece to this whole plan to move that economic engine. And so I'm just wondering, from your perspective, both as a legislator, but also on the other side in that clinical license social work position, the role that you see community college really playing in a community.
Well, I think it plays an absolutely instrumental role. And we talked earlier about $65 billion of investment in industry. You've got an LNG plant coming to Plaquemines Parish. You've got another big LNG investment that's going to be at Port Fourchon, which is literally in our backyard. Those investments and those big opportunities, they're going to need workers, right?
Yep.
They're going to need people to go that are ready, right? Work ready, trained. And I love the fact that a high school student can begin their training in high school, but then go and take a few months and come out making $100,000 a year. I think it's so wonderful and such a great opportunity. And whether they want to go to college later to further their career or whatever it is, just coming out with that ability and that opportunity, I think is so wonderful. And that's what we really need to tap in on in the state of Louisiana, is the fact that not all kids are college ready. I wasn't a college ready kid. I mean, I took remedial math, like every remedial there possibly was. I was like a really, really poor student. Somehow I got through it, and graduate school was a little bit easier for me. But I wasn't college ready. But back then in, the early 2000s, late 90s, you didn't focus on an alternative. Everything was college, college, college. And so, now having those opportunities, I think whether it's nursing or whether it's it's some sort of craft or electrician or whatever, we're going to need those people. I mean, do you know how much I have to pay for an electrician to come to my house? I mean, a
Right.
plumber. I mean,
Yeah.
we need all of those people, and we also need that workforce, especially to drive this investment that we're having. And so, look, I'm 100% in support of Fletcher and in support of all community college programs, because I do see a world where it's as equally as important as your 4-year degree is.
Yeah. And look, we talk all the time that it's really truly a pathway. There isn't an either or. And one of the things that I think I fell in love with the community college mission so many years ago was that we really meet individuals where they are. So if you are an individual who needs remedial, right, or you need some additional assistance or just some additional time in learning some of the foundational skills, we've got you here on that, right? Maybe you didn't even complete a high school diploma, and that's something you want to do. Literacy skills we do, all the way up through these really professional, high wage, high demand jobs, but to also realize too that it doesn't have to be an either or, that it can be a continuous journey. So from Fletcher, you can go on to get a 4-year degree. And it's almost building your skill set as you go along. And so I totally agree that I think that there's so many opportunities at the community college that are really important, not only to the community, but to our future workforce that we have to, be paying attention to. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention, too, that Fletcher has had a wonderful relationship with Stark Corporation. We know that many of our students who are either thinking about coming to community college or in community college, a lot of times it's not academics that get in their way. It's the stuff outside of school and college. Maybe it's transportation challenges. Maybe it's childcare issues. Maybe it's mental health. And even sometimes substance abuse, right? Or homelessness. We have students who have encountered all of those things. So I just wanted to say, from on behalf of our side, having Stark Corporation in our community as a resource, not just for our students, but for our community, has been really a game changer in opening the doors, I think, for opportunity for our entire community that maybe weren't there before.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've actually talked to some of my patients about Fletcher and about the opportunities that they have, because there's such a fear as well. Well, if I go to school, I won't have an income, and I need to have an income. And so, no, you can still have an income and you can still go to school, but then you know how much you're going to make after you go to school.
Right.
And so those are kind of the things that, that I talk to people about and I talk to patients about is, look, the opportunity's there. You just have to take it.
Yeah. And want to make sure, too, for those who are out watching or listening, if they are hearing things, they maybe have heard some of what you talked about with Stark Corporation and the services you provide, and maybe themselves or a family member or a friend needs that assistance. Do you know the Stark Corporation website address?
Oh, startcorp.org.
Okay.
Or, of course, they could call the clinic. It's 985-333-2020.
Oh, that's easy.
It's a very easy number to remember.
And look, we will put those in our show notes for anybody who might want to access those resources. So one last question on the professional side, and is there one thing that you'd like to highlight that was a big win for you last legislative session that you want to go to the rooftops and shout it out so everybody knew?
I'm really proud of. I ran a bill to clean up our derelict vessel laws. In Terrebonne Parish alone, we have over 900 derelict vessels.
Wow.
So this is vessels that are abandoned or that were wrecked or whatever in our waterways. And so when I was talking with Wildlife and Fisheries about this, I went and I met with them, and I met with Wildlife and Fisheries, and I said, what's the rule? Like, what's the law? And they had to go through about 9 different statutes just to tell me what the law was for derelict vessels. I said, no. This is why we're in the mess we're in right now, is because no one can tell me what the law is. And so I worked with Wildlife and Fisheries. I worked with Natural Resources, the Department of Natural Resources, and we ran a bill that was signed by the governor, and it's just cleaning up our derelict vessel laws. And so now the way the law is we're going to treat it more like, an abandoned car on the side of the road. So, it gets identified. It would then go to the council. The council would then vote on it. They would get a 30-day notification. If not, then there's a salvage piece to that as well. And so there's a salvage piece, and we enhance the salvage laws too. And so now, once it goes through the proper processes, it's this abandoned vessel, anybody can clean it up. So if you say, I want to bring a bunch of kids and we want to clean up this section of the bayou, you can now, as long as it goes through those proper channels. And it really gives ownership to the community as well to be able to clean up their areas. And this isn't just, once again, a Terrebonne Parish issue. This is all over the state of Louisiana. The department was really, really excited about this bill. They put it as part of their package. So, we're able to kind of get those things done. And of course, with anything, it's going to take a while for people to realize how the law changed. But I'm real excited about it. I'm really excited about seeing kind of where it goes. But it was a really fun bill to work on.
That's great. And what I love about that is a lot of times we get caught up in the big and the flashy and the things that are being pushed out all over the media or on social media, right? And to know that our legislators are really taking issues that are super close to home, really tied back to our communities, and doing those things that on the daily are going to make our lives better, right? So it's not just the big things are important, but so are the small things. And sometimes those small things are the things that might impact the community more than we ever imagined. So thank you for taking that up and doing the work for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, we are going to be coming to a close, but a little bird happened to tell me that I could probably refer to you as Aussie. Is that accurate?
It is. So my mother is Australian.
Really?
Yes. So my mother was born in Australia, and she came to the United States in the late 70s, early 80s on a cruise ship. And so she was working on this boat, and she ended up in Aransas Pass, Texas. And my dad he was shrimping out of Texas at the time, and she went and worked for my dad on a shrimp boat. And one thing led to another, and here I am. And so yeah, when I was a child, I had dual citizenship. And so we would live in Australia, then we would live in the United States, and we would kind of go back and forth until we finally decided we needed to just be in one place. And so, yes, I am Australian. So it's I'm the only Australian American member of the Louisiana State Legislature. I can say that with a fact. So I'm in a delegation all by myself, but
there you go.
It's great. We've been several times. My kids want to go. It's such a long trip. I mean, it's like a 20-hour flight. So it's just, when do we have time to actually make it? But we will make it. I know we will. It just, once again, it's one of those really, really complicated trips. But
yeah, I was going to say, when you were saying you were going back and forth, I was like, that is a commute, right? To get back and forth. You don't just pick up and decide to go to Australia at the drop of a hat. What a cool story. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So what part of Australia?
So my mother's deceased, but she when she was living in Adelaide. And so when she passed away, my husband and I said we would name our first child Adelaide, and we have an Adelaide. But I have family in Melbourne. I have family in Brisbane. So we really have family kind of scattered all over. I still have cousins there. I still have aunts there. Most of my grandparents now, they've passed away, but we still have lots of family there. So it's kind of an interesting, and we keep in touch on social media, like they get to, kind of see our pictures or get to see what we're doing, or they'll send me a message or something. So it's kind of cool to be able to have that connection.
That really is. Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I had no clue,
Yeah.
but that's pretty neat. And I guess maybe when we go travel, that should be our first podcast stop in retirement.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so be on the lookout. Kristine and Jessica
Take over the
on
world.
the Outback. Maybe I'll come home with a kangaroo. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe, well, I don't. Yeah. Maybe.
Or large creatures. I've seen some of the bugs over there. But anyway, well, thank you so much for joining us today for the podcast. It's been a pleasure to get to know you better, to learn a little bit more about the work that you're doing, the important work, whether that be with our legislature or here in our own community, both in advocacy, but also with the Start Corporation. And again, we will post all of this information in our show notes. Be sure to check those out. And just want to encourage everyone, if you're out there watching or listening, be sure to like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you once again for joining us today. Thank all of you for joining us for Bridging the Bayou, the podcast of Fletcher Technical Community College. Thank you for listening to Bridging the Bayou, the podcast of Fletcher Technical Community College. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.